everyone, and welcome to the Hope Report, your light in the darkness, brought to you by the Lindell Recovery Network. I am Jason Perry.
And I'm Melissa Huray, Jason. It's our Tuesday edition of the Hope Report. We're super excited today. We get to revisit your testimony. I can't wait for that. I mean, like you said, every time we do it, the Holy Spirit reveals different things and takes us to different places, and it's always a great time.
Yeah, I never know where it's gonna go, or I really don't have a plan. I just kind of
Good.
see what just open up my heart and tell the parts that are the most crystal clear at that moment. Always trying to be aware of the audience, and never glorifying the sin, but showing the cost of sin and showing the range from where I came from to where I am today. And
Yeah.
and the the testimony continues to evolve minute by minute, meaning that it's
Yes.
never done until I'm called home.
That's true. And I've found that at different times in your life, God will have you focus, he has you focus on different areas, or he'll highlight different things. And, you know, there's different people who are going to, it's going to resonate with different types of people. There's so much to your testimony. So it's going to be awesome. Hi, Lauren. You got the little, dissenter taking a nap, and it sounds like you had some interesting times on your Bible study this morning. I don't hear anything from your house. I was telling you before, I never hear a thing. I can't believe you've got 2 toddlers in the background and a bunch of animals that we never hear or see, or maybe see occasionally.
Yeah,
but
I put a lot of work into squashing all non-essential sound because I've had Shepherd, our
it
rooster,
shows.
on the other side of that, like 5 feet that way, 6 feet that way, on the other side of a window, doing his rooster thing. And I'm just like,
around.
oh my, yeah, and doing cock-a-doodle-doo, and it's like, it's not quiet. And I'm like, oh God, please tell me no one hears that. The whole time I'm trying to like tell like the deepest heart-wrenching thing or whatever, and that's when I'll do that. Or Oda Pup will be scratching at the door and whimpering. And now this morning, if it wasn't my Instagram stand with the phone falling over, it was Anya screaming in the background for something so important as she was unhappy with the water.
Yes, it didn't meet her standards, the water cup. It's a toddler for you, Jason. That's what we expect, right?
Yeah, well, we you just try to do the best. People love authenticity, and this show is
I was going to say that.
Live on all of our social media channels. I know it's not live on all of our TV partners, but it is live, and it's unedited, so you get the warts, the wrinkles, the bumps, the bruises, and all the imperfections that go with it. And you know that we're real. Like, it's not scripted, where if we get something wrong, it's not there's nothing we can do other than say, oops, we got it wrong, sorry.
Yeah, we had pest control come over. I wanted to lose my mind because I said to Mike, why do we need to have year-round pest control? Because we have these things called voles. I don't know if you have those in Tennessee, but they're little pests. They're not moles. They're voles. They're different things. They destroy your grass and build tunnels, kind of like the gopher on Caddyshack, but it's a little rodent. So they come over in January. They walk right through the backyard, but he had them come after 1 o'clock yesterday. So the dog wouldn't go nuts during our show. So I did appreciate that, but I have people showing up at the door all the time. But yeah, I think people do enjoy that we are real, we're live, and stuff happens from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? You can see a naked toddler run by through the background here. I've had Dee. I was watching one of our episodes, and she had her clothes on, of course. But I'm sitting here, and as I'm editing it, I watch that door behind me right here open, and I see her come in, and we never noticed. Right, we never noticed. Come in, go get something out of the back over here, come back in and leave. And I'm just like, that just happened. That's like a nightmare. That's, you got all these guys, that's why I'm glad we don't use fake green screens, or we're trying to act like we're in a professional studio somewhere off in like some skyscraper, and then someone's kid breaks into the back and the nanny's running after him. And it's like,
so awkward.
It's so fake.
It is. And remember, someone told us that I needed a better background. So I put up the fantastic Twins Minneapolis skyline, which is really beautiful from afar. But, I think people prefer the bookshelf behind me or something.
I love your real bookshelf. I love that
Thanks.
that's your
It's more
house.
me
That's
than a Minneapolis
Yeah,
skyline. It really is.
there's a lot of Easter eggs back there, everyone. You look back there and you can see, different stages of her life,
Book.
what's important to her and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
care. If you look, actually, it's kind of there's my Boston police hat from when I
Yes.
was Boston PD.
You got a lot of good stuff
You
back there.
can't see back behind this. Uh, Back there, that's my helmet from when I was a motorcycle cop in Boston PD.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of different stuff the memorabilia that I sprinkle throughout that people will notice.
Yeah, I've got my vow renewal picture back there, and that's a really important thing. The wedding picture and then the vow renewal that came at year 10 and
Lauren and I are doing our vow renewal
yes.
on June 10th, which is a Saturday this year,
That's
our 7-year
awesome.
marriage. We're gonna, redo that, include the kids, and use that as the launching point for opening our mountain in the back um, as a wedding venue.
That's gonna be so great. I'm so excited for you guys.
Yeah, so everyone who sees our pre-launch and our post-launch, our intro and outro,
Yeah.
that we are building that mountain that you see us on there, and that we're walking up. We're putting a bunch of log cabins on it. We're putting a giant sanctuary on the top, and we're going to do weddings up there. We're going to as a baby step up to that. We have a pavilion and fire pit and everything else, and we're going to turn that into a beautiful wedding venue as a baby step to building everything else.
It's absolutely gorgeous, your land. It's incredible. You have a slice of heaven right there. So it's
Well, I
gonna be exciting to
appreciate
see
it.
your
It's all
plants.
mud right now, unfortunately. So it's the ugliest time of year is right now where everything is mud because it's been raining off and on since 2023.
Yeah, yeah.
But the good part is it's about to be over. Like tomorrow's the first day of February, and it's about to be over.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus. We're done with January.
Yeah.
And after February, spring's going to come. I've been doing some things to try to help myself cope with living in Minnesota. So a couple things I'm doing is Ray Froning of Truth and Freedom Church. He's been a frequent guest on here. He's going to be back sometime soon, I think in February. But I'm going to join a leadership position at his church. And then I connected with this guy that Sharam Hadian, our friend, put me in touch with, who has a nonprofit called Restore Minnesota. And he's the guy who ministers to the Muslims in Little Somalia and the communities around here. I mean, I don't know if I'm the most stellar witness to the Muslim population, but if there's somebody to learn from, it's this guy, I think. So those are two things that I'm getting involved in. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I think that's awesome, and I'm glad that you're there to fight the fight in Minnesota. So somebody's fighting for Minnesota because as you said that they passed that law yesterday to kill babies up to 28 weeks.
It just makes me no. It's up to third
birth.
trimester. Yeah, it was the picture was showing a 28-week-old baby, and then one of my friends commented that her grandson was born at 25 weeks and survived. I just can't wrap my mind around people being okay with that, terminating a fully formed human that can survive outside the womb. It's sad.
Well,
it's embarrassing to be from this state, a state that supports things.
My home state's the same way, and I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia goes that way as well. Which would be the place I spent the second most time. Right now, America has a heavy demonic influence over it. I mean, when you're celebrating the killing of life, what's up with that?
Yeah, it's wicked.
So anyways,
but we're the Hope Report. We're gonna have a heavy dose of hope today because Jason, you kind of felt like you were a hopeless case, or you looking at your life. I'm sure family people looked at you and thought, well, he's a hardcore atheist.
Well, everyone thought I was going to be in jail, so that's one thing. So if there was most likely to go to prison or whatever, that would have definitely been me. But I'm hoping to take a different approach to my testimony today, and to provide questions and counseling at each point where I think what caused this and how we could correct that action.
That's a great approach.
So first off, let's start with who well, go ahead. You kick it off.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Jason and I we've known each other almost 2 years now, and we're very unlikely to come together other than the divine hand of God, I feel. So some of you know the story, but I was working for Mike Lindell and Jason was looking for a new opportunity, and he spoke to his friend Paul Lavelle, who's also a friend of Mike Lindell and the founder of the Operation Restored Warrior program we have on the Lindell Recovery Network. And they were collaborating, and Paul said, I think that Jason and Melissa, this woman who works for Mike, who has a broadcasting background, would be perfect to start a podcast. He started talking to Mike about this. And at the time, Mike was doing a million things, as he always does, and it wasn't really at the front of his mind. But Paul kept bringing it up to him, saying, Mike, I think this is a perfect time for you to start a podcast, and these are the people to do it. And Mike had always talked about the Hope Report, wanting to have a show that was only good news and call it the Hope Report. So that's how Jason and I came together, because after about 6 months of this, Mike finally said, yeah, you know what, let's do it, after we thought it was kind of a dead deal. So we've known each other almost 2 years, and I have to say I've learned so much from you. I appreciate so much about you, your honesty. I've talked about many things, but how you don't lead with, you could talk about your military experience and being a SEAL and being a cop and all this, types of things that people look upon very favorably and gives you this status and this position. But you're one of the most humble people I've ever met. And you don't lead with that stuff. I mean, you truly lead with the love of Jesus and this fire to help other people know Jesus the way you do. So that's a long intro, but to see where you've come from, you can look at Jason's story and say, if I feel like my family member is hopeless or they're so far gone, no one is beyond the reach of Jesus. And that's what I see in looking at you. So let's talk about, we have some parallels too. Your parents were teen parents, and so were mine with my brother. They had me 6 years later, but you came from, a family.
Yeah, my mom was 16. My mom was 16. My dad was 18. But the story actually even starts before that. Atheism is often a generational curse, and there's usually wounds behind it, right? Particularly when you're looking at older generations. So my grandfather on my mother's side was an orphan, and he was in one of the most notorious orphanages in Newfoundland called St. Vincent's. And there's a movie out called The Boys of St. Vincent's. And they were sexually assaulted and abused by priests, which really hardened my grandfather's heart to that. So, so he was an atheist, and even though I would call him one of the nicest guys I've ever known, right? And I would say he was a moral character in a lot of ways, but without God, it's all pointless, right?
Yeah.
And so, my mom, again, everyone in no one in my family graduated high school up until my aunt. I dropped out in the 10th grade, and I'll get to that. Mm-hmm. But my grandfather was a brilliant man. He was self-educated, taught himself how to read and write, be a master carpenter, plumber, electrician, mechanic, the whole thing. But that's where his wound was. And then he turned to alcohol, and he was an alcoholic. But I never, he was particularly during the years I was around, he was what I would call a happy drunk. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never seen him lose his temper. I've never seen him do whatever. It was always, he always would just chill on it. And that was just part of it, right? But my aunts became alcoholics. One of my aunts became a drug addict, became addicted to and died from an accidental overdose to prescription meds. She was like a second mom to me. But so my mom and dad had me with 18. I just wanted to set that frame. On my father's side, there's alcoholism on, back 3 generations, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember faith being ever mentioned over there. There was no grace, there was no mentoring, no discipleship, no nothing. So that is the first lesson to be learned, right? When I was born, my mom was, like I said, 16. My dad was 18. She ended up giving me to my grandparents to raise. And no one baptized me. They all said they were trying to be moral. We're going to let him make that decision on his own, which that is not the way to do it, right? Yeah. You need to be raised in the Lord, because it is the truth and it is the way, or you're basically turning your kid over to the devil. All right. You are literally handing your kid over to the devil. Now, my mom was very broken. She had sexual trauma as a kid with a relative in Canada, as did all my aunts, and a lot of other things that came out. So there's a lot of brokenness and a lot of broken people doing the best they can. I'm just saying that to not pass judgment on them. right?
Yeah.
My dad was a diehard alcoholic, like fifth generation. Um, and he ended up getting clean and sober later on in life and has been clean and sober since.
Praise God.
And yeah, and and my grandfather on my father's side also did, just a caveat. But he was what I would call a dry drunk. He was a miserable person who couldn't drink and was a dry drunk because of that, and was not the best to be around, if you know what I'm saying. He was always angry. I think he is where I got my anger from, because he was always angry. But anyways, so I was born, and I had dyslexia. So I went into school and I got kept back. I went in the Northeast, right? So again, this is, again, I know not everyone can do what Lauren and I are doing, but I want to set examples here. So one, raise your kid in the Lord. Two, I would not trust my kid in public schools. I went into the Boston public school and I was basically raised on evolution as fact. Anything, there was no room for God. There was no room for anything. It was drink from the fire hose of atheism. And that's what it was. Now, and I was lucky because I was in a good school, right? Meaning that they recognized I had dyslexia. My mom doesn't even know I had dyslexia. I told her that. She doesn't remember it. I just remember saying, I got held back in first grade, I scored really well in all the tests, but they just had to fix how I was reading. So they got that ironed out. So again, but now there's no chance for me to ever believe in God at this point, because I'm being told I don't want to say no chance. The deck is stacked against belief at this point, right? So then, one of my friends, right? And again, we talk about your kids and who they hang out with. Yes. One of my friends' parents were degenerates. They all smoked weed. They let all the kids smoke weed and do everything. So that's where I was exposed to porn. That's where I was exposed to drugs. That's where I was exposed to everything. We'd all go over there because they were never around, or they wouldn't bother us in the basement. It's also where we played street hockey all the time and all this. And this is where I was in, where there's a positive and a negative. So this is where
did you exposed. Let me just ask you, did you sure. you have a brother, you have had a brother. Yes. So is your age gap big? Did your parents stay
6 years for Ryan? So I had two brothers, right? So my mom ended up getting remarried in early 20s. So she had me at 16. So in her early 20s, she got remarried. She had my middle brother, Brandon, who had Down syndrome, and then a second kid, Ryan, who was 6 years different from me. So it was like 3 and 3, right? Okay. So she got remarried to another guy. I moved back in, and what we thought would be a happy family. She caught him cheating on her and left him. And here she is on welfare. We're sleeping on the kitchen floor in the winter in front of the stove on mattresses on the floor because she couldn't pay she could pay the electric bill, but she couldn't pay the oil bill. Right. So, again, I understand this is hard for my mom. So here's my brother, Brandon, at that age was biting Ryan, who was younger. Right. So there's child services, what's going on? This kid looks horrible. Again, Down syndrome, it can be challenging. But Brandon and I were really close. And so when they got divorced, my mom gave Brandon away up for adoption to a wealthy family. And he had a great life. She kept Ryan and she sent me to my grandparents. So this is really where my abandonment wound came into full force, right? So one, no one ever fought for me. My grandparents didn't fight to adopt me. My mom, did the best that she could. But again, they don't understand this. They're all broken themselves, right? They're all shattered themselves and they have no idea. They have no self-esteem, no guidance, no Bible, no nothing, right? They're on autopilot trying to figure this out. And now my youngest brother, or my closest brother, is gone, right? He's gone. I'm never going to see him again. I never see him again.
Wow.
And my mom chose to keep my younger brother, which made me hate him because she kept him, right? And gave me to my grandma. So this is where my formative wound of abandonment comes in. My dad goes off, starts a new family, right? And he's a catastrophe for another 10 years or so. I think at 30 something, he wakes up and, gets saved for real, he does the 12 step. He's a big believer in AA and the original AA that was tied to God, because you remember it was
which actually worked. Ago. Yes.
Right. So, so anyway, so he's got his family. I see him on the weekends. When I see him, when in the beginning he was still doing drugs. He had a hippie ponytail, a motorcycle. He would smoke weed in front of me, saying he's not going to hide anything from his kids. I'd have uncles offer me joints all the time, really young, and I would never take it. I hated it because I actually had one friend, Joe Baker, who's no longer with us, but his parents were like the model parents around the neighborhood, and they kind of like adopted me and brought me in, so I got to see what a clean cut dad looked like for a clean cut family, and mine was a catastrophe. Right. And I just really resented my dad for being the hippie guy with the ponytail and the dirt bag smoking weed with seeds all over his deck and just stupid stuff. Right. Um, but anyways, at about fourth grade, I want to say fourth, fifth grade, I think it was fourth, through that same family, those kids that, the family was messed up. I got introduced to Dungeons and Dragons. Right. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, you guys know, was a big deal in the 80s. It was invented in the 70s by a guy named Gary Gygax. And it's heavily influenced and it is an intelligent role-playing game, meaning you're supposed to play heroes in it, right? Meaning you're supposed to be the primary hero character in a living novel that you can take it any way you want. That's the concept, right? But unfortunately, it exposes you to a lot of things. But the good thing is I enjoyed it so much. It unlocked my imagination. And I got so hungry to read. I went from 2 grades below to 2 grades above in one summer. So I made up 4 years of reading and vocabulary in one summer. But this also opened up the sympathy for the devil, because the people who write these things are pretty twisted people. And they're always trying to make, anti-hero heroes, this devil, like people are playing devils and demons and all these other things. And there's always this sympathetic story of why they're that way. They got a raw deal.
Yeah.
Now you're right. And now there's a book called Deities and Demigods, and it's about that thick, and it's beautiful of illustrations. And it's all the mythologies from all the different realms given equal credence. So there's Thor and Zeus and Apollo and this.
Just normalizing it.
Yeah. Normalizing it. And you're just like, well, this is like, and you're learning, like I would dive into it. I couldn't get enough of it. It was so fascinating.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, what do the Vikings believe? Man, their beliefs are really cool. Like if I was going to design a religion, if Jay was, it would have been the bravest people, would have been the ones that are going to live forever in eternity. And they would be partying and drinking and hanging out with all the girls and doing all this stuff. And that's what Viking religion 101 was. Cowards suffered the worst fate, and the brave live forever. And I'm just like,
my cousin was really into Dungeons and Dragons, and to hear your testimony is really encouraging, because my kids have a D&D club at school. They aren't interested in it, but lots of schools provide this for kids in middle school. And my brother is an 8th grade teacher, and he talks about the benefits. I mean, they're not going to really talk about the dark side. And I'm sure it does have enormous benefits, like anything else that has a dark side as well. But I never
could do an entire show on that, and I could fill a week full of that. There is a lot of positives that come with it, and there is a vacuum, because there should be a Christian role-playing game that teaches morality and how to be a Christian without the cost, right? And you could do that with a Christian group portraying the right way and doing the right things, and you could use that as a way to teach the cost of being, noble and good. You should
make
all
that.
These
you
things.
should design that.
So someday it's on my list to do things, right? But role playing is basically a way to learn without the cost of consequences in real life, right? So it is very valuable. The problem is that you had the most broken, twisted people writing these things. So you got guys with Stephen King's ability to write, and creativity and darkness and evil thoughts with demonic intent to flip kids that way. I'm not saying all of them were. Some of them are just great fantasy writers, right? But there is some who it just leads you down a certain way. And now what are you listening to? Along with that game and along with that culture comes the old, fantasy, dark fantasy, rock and roll stuff. You start rolling into Led Zeppelin, and all that. And it's a shame, because you have J.R.R. Tolkien, who is a Christian, solid, and who was trying to write a Christ-like story of fantasy with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But now that was the original. Now everyone else makes it darker and darker, and now your hero is more and more evil.
You just made me think of something, and I don't know if this played a role, but my cousin was deeply into D&D, and my dad just had one brother who had 2 kids, so they're my first cousins, and he was into, lots of stuff with knives and swords, D&D, Tolkien, and he ended up committing suicide when he was 22. And I don't know if
Mhm.
that played a role. I actually asked my brother that when I was trying to get to the bottom of, is it good to have D&D in middle school? And I said, do you think this played any part in our cousin's death? And he said, well, I have no idea. It could have been any number of things. But he spent hours and hours every day playing D&D.
So it's very little difference between that and modern day gaming.
Mm.
Right? If you are escaping for your life we would have 48 72-hour marathons where we would play D&D until we
Yeah.
were all falling asleep, wake up, play it again, wake up, play it again, and try to get through one of these books called a module, which is an adventure, right? Which is basically the setting and everything that's going to happen, and you go through it, and you try to go through it once because it's very fulfilling to get through this stuff. But anyways, it's very similar to games today where people escape. If your life sucks so bad that you want to play Call of Duty for 12 hours a day, or
Yeah, there's
18
a
hours a
problem.
day, or 24 hours a day, or wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a problem because you're escaping your real life. And
Yeah.
that's what it all comes down to. I was escaping at that point. This is my first coping mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of dealing with my abandonment as I could go in. And the thing is in D&D, which is kind of ironic, is I always wanted to be a paladin in the beginning. I wanted to be the holy warrior of God who walked into, um, could go into hell and slay all the demons and be the hero. But
Did you
eventually
feel
that just
hopeless? Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Sam said gaming all day could keep me busy, but I felt hopeless. During this time, did you feel any emptiness, or did you
I
just
didn't process any emptiness at that point. At that point, I just kept looking to the next fantasy. I would be thinking about
the
it all the
next
time
hit?
and not thinking about where my life was, right? It's like I am not like who Jason is right now, stumbling around in sixth grade doesn't matter because I am about to conquer this dungeon and I'm
Yeah.
about to be a hero in the world that I was in.
Yeah. Brian, good to see you. Brian was on one of our episodes past. Awesome to
Awesome.
have you stop by. Satan is
Yeah.
completely behind it. Would you agree, Jason, that Satan is completely behind D&D, or is just it all in the way that you use it? I mean, can you do it in moderation, have it be useful?
You would have to be completely on guard. It is very dangerous. It's like playing with a loaded gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can guns be used for good? Absolutely. I'm a firm Second Amendment advocate, but you have to understand what you're dealing with, and you have to understand who you're hanging out with and who you're allowing to guide you on this path. Right.
Right.
It's different from a video game. A video game is written from beginning to end, and there's some choices to be made. And some of the video games now you can do some really evil stuff. You have a light ending, like you can be the good guy and the savior, or you can be the evil guy. And there are video games that are writing that now where you can embrace that, which nurtures the demonic side in all of us and the devil in all of us, and it should be
Yeah.
definitely avoided. You don't want your kids exploring rape and murder
No.
and all these other things, right? They're not understanding this in any real context, and it's desensitizing them to it.
So D&D was your to violence and to the darkness of our world. So this was your first coping mechanism, getting into gaming and just kind of
Yes.
pursuing that next session and then the next high.
Yeah,
of
the
doing
next time where I could be the hero, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's a dopamine hit of a different type, but now I
Yeah.
can fantasize about it, right? Because it's not a drug. I don't need it. Now I'm actually in it all the time, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to solve this. And maybe I can write this little cool backdrop into my story that'll help with my character development and so on and so forth, right? It becomes all consuming. If you're an all consuming person, it can become all consuming. You're living a fake life instead of your real life, right?
Yeah.
All this while navigating middle school and high school, right?
So you did this all through high school, the gaming?
Nope. I when I got into high school, I still off and on went to it, off and on, and did it. Would do it once I would get stable. Like once I was bored with whatever, like I got heavily into lifting and fighting and all that stuff, and taking on bullies and working my way. Didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't wear all the cool clothes. So by fighting and being a tough guy, I could be cool that way. Right. So basically all this stuff was great until I met my first girl. And this is going to sound very familiar to John Eldridge. Right. So I have all these abandonment wounds. My friends betray me as kids, like all kids do. They don't understand what they're doing, but it just happens. Kids are mean. Things happen. They don't understand concepts like loyalty or any of that stuff till later. And then I fall in love, and it's all in. I think that this girl's going to be there from from day one to the end. And, and then that blew up. Right.
Yeah.
And when that blew up, that ripped my heart out. And I went from, somebody who would never look at another girl, somebody who would never cheat, never do anything, to I'm going to cheat on everyone. No one's ever going to break my heart. I'm never going to tell the truth. I'm going to gauge myself by how many women I can trick, because they are just going to tear your heart out of me. So I went from serial wounder to serial wounded, or I went from wounded to serial wounder. And that was where I really went off the edge. Now, during all this time, and I want to talk about some things here. So D&D is one, but music is the other. Lyrics always mattered to me. And I would always so I started getting angry during this time. Right now I'm getting really angry. Angry was my superpower, my imagination, and then anger. And as after the girl thing blew up, I just became so super angry. If I could get angry enough, I could make it through anything. Right. So I started listening to the most evil music possible. I started listening to Slayer. I started listening to King Diamond. I started listening to devout Satanists and started leading that way. I went and I bought a satanic Bible, and read it and doing the rituals. I didn't feel anything. I didn't think any of it was any legit. Yeah. It was just an outcry for some meaning.
Yeah.
Right? I'm so
Rebellion.
angry. Yeah. I'm so angry that there is no God, because I didn't believe in God. I'm so angry. I just want to do everything to piss him off. If for some chance that, whatever, I have no idea the logic behind it. Right. But
did you look, let me just ask, were you seeking this woman? Do you think subconsciously your first girlfriend to heal your abandonment wound, or did it just happen that you ended up together?
I'm sure I held on too tight. I did all the wrong things wrong, made her the center of my world. I was younger than her. I dropped out of school at 10th grade. I was big because I was lifting weights, and I started hanging out with a lot of guys that were older than me. And I got introduced to steroids and a bunch of other things. So now I'm jacked at 16. I look like I'm 24 and I'm bouncing in a nightclub lying about my age.
Wow.
So, you're in there, and I've got the hormones of a 16-year-old and the understanding of a 16-year-old. So, you hook up with your first girl in a nightclub and you're like, why am I even going to school and dealing with these popularity contests and all this stuff where, so I was like, I'm done. So I went out and I got in the Teamsters Union. I lied about my age there too, got on the Teamsters Union, started loading trucks, started making great money at the time. Like I tell people in the South what I made in like 1990, and I was making, $25 an hour loading trucks in 1990 before the recession hit and all that stuff. Right. And people would just fall over. Right. So now I got my own apartment. I got my own rules. I got my own car. I've got the leather couch. No one's going to tell me what to do at 16. Right.
You're all set. You're living the high life.
Right. And then the recession hit, and then I had to do everything I could to try to hold on. So I started dealing drugs. I started as parties in my house. I'd throw a kegger and I'd pay $5 a cup, $5 a cup for all you could drink beer. And they would come in and do that. And that would pay the rent for a little while until the neighbors got pissed. And then they would do that. And then it was Coke. And then it was a bunch of other stuff. And it was just, I was just stopped at Coke. But, again, became a complete toilet. I lost all hope. Right. That was the thing. I remember sitting there and I'm just like, I am a loser now. I have no hope. I've got nowhere to go. So I'm just going to enjoy every minute like it's my last.
Wow. Yeah.
And then one day I'm lying in bed. I'm like the ripe old age of like, I might have been 19. I'm lying in bed. Of course, I've had a fake ID now for 10 years. Basically, it seems like not 10, but for a long time. And I'm like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. My nose hurts. I feel terrible. And I'm like, I paid $300 to feel this way. I'm like, how stupid am I? You know what I'm saying? How stupid am I? And then I'm just like, you know what? I need to do something. I need to get out of this. I need to turn my life around. I'm going to end up dead or in jail. I was a bright kid. What happened? Luckily, I have nothing on my record yet. Right now, I did a lot of stupid stuff. I broke a lot of laws, and I was a very bad person. And luckily, I turned right when they turned left, or they didn't look under the car I was hiding under, or any of those other things. I was a thug. Okay, I can't say that clear enough, and I don't want to celebrate everything I did, but I was a very bad person. And then I'm like, okay, I'm 20 years old. What do I do? How do I turn this around? Well, I didn't believe in God. So I'm like, what can I do? And then I remembered I loved America. Even though I was raised in Boston, right? And Boston still back then loved freedom in America and was
Yeah.
patriotic. We sang "My Tis of Thee," my country tis of thee, sweet
Yeah.
land of. We did all those different types of songs. I knew all that stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm going to serve America. I'm going to do the hardest thing I can do. I'm going to go join the military. I'm going to serve America and make up for being the knucklehead I was. And
so you had a moment of clarity kind of when you were 20. It sounds like, I don't know where that came from. That was that God, putting that, getting you off the course that you were on for a while, even though you weren't done for a long time.
I knew it wasn't my identity. I didn't know how I got there. I made a bunch of, I made a bunch of bad decisions, and now here I was paying the cost for all those decisions, and not really paying, like I wasn't in jail, but I wasn't who I wanted to be. I wanted so much more for my life.
Yeah.
I could be a straight A student in a second if I wanted to. Right. Yeah. It was never about that for me. So I go off and to make a longer story short, because it's not important, about how I wanted to become, I ended up becoming a Navy SEAL. All right. So I find out about Navy SEALs. I sign up to be one. I'm the only one in my boot camp class that passed the exam on the first time. I had so much stacked against me to do it. I didn't know how to swim organized. Right. I could float, I could doggy paddle, and I could kind of get where I wanted to go. But I literally had to be taught they tell you when you do the SEAL test swim, you got to do the breaststroke, which I knew, but was not very good at, or the side stroke. And I'm like, what's the side stroke? And a guy who ended up becoming a SEAL later on as well with me, Todd, said, okay, Jay, here's how you do it. You reach up, you pick an apple, you put it in your hand, you put it in the basket. Oh. And I'm like, all right. And I did that as fast as I possibly could. Yeah. And I did that and I passed.
Wow.
Right? And so now, I go from Orlando to my A school at those times. So back then, SEALs had to be a part of a source rating, which means you had to pick a job that SEALs needed within the SEAL community as well. So you had engine men, gunmen, medic, so and so. I put medic as like number 6. I put guns here, this, that, all the testosterone stuff, and then medic was like 3rd from the last. And they're like, oh, you scored so high, you're medic. And I'm like, that was like number 7. I'm the only one with that. Like, but anyways, that was one of the best things that happened to me.
Did you ever feel that, going through all of that to become a SEAL, you hear about this, it's one of the hardest things ever. You're the most elite warriors. Did you ever feel like giving up, or that I can't do this? Or what is it within you that drove you?
Anger at that point. It was
what were you
superpower?
That I
just got angry. Yeah, I was angry at the world. I was angry at all my mistakes. I was angry that there was no God. Really, that was that's why my favorite song was "God Hates Us All." And I just, and all the abandonment, I would just, for everyone, I'm going to show everyone, right? It was I'm going to show them thing, which is basically what David Goggins is, right? Like I can't, everything. I can't listen to him. It's just so much, he seems like the saddest guy on the planet, the most angry guy on the planet. And I pray that Christ finds him and helps him.
Yeah.
But, but anyways, it was a big, blank you attitude, right? And that was the chip on the shoulder I carried. So I go through the first time, training through the first time, and I get injured and I get rolled out and I get sent to a hospital for 18 months to rehab and then try again. I come back and I go through training and I get up, I'm going into Hell Week, which is week 6 when I went through, and you had to earn your way into Hell Week, and I'm running and I'm limping. I've got what's called the stress fracture at this point, and that's what got me dropped the first time. I have a funny curve, I think, in my tibia. Plus I was a big kid. I was a muscle head. I wasn't a triathlete. Right. And so, one of the instructors there, and this is a funny story and lighthearted story before we get into some of the darker stuff. And we're probably going to go over an hour today, Pete. Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
That's cool. No, I'll take as much time as you want.
So his name was Instructor Hawes, and Instructor Hawes was this big, black, jacked SEAL. Right, black seals are rare. And he was a big black jack seal, and he was almost as wide as he was tall. All right, so and he was motivating me in his way. And while we were running back, I was limping so hard. He was, Buds is one of the funnest places on earth. And people ask me where I had the best time in my career was in Buds because it makes the most sense. It's the most just place. It's where effort and teamwork is rewarded, and and grit and determination is rewarded. That's not always the case on the outside, right? It's not always as fair. So he sees me doing, he's like, and there was a bunch of gray ships on, that were all along the road, and he's like, oh, Perry dog, I was looking in my crystal ball last night and I was asking it, crystal ball, on Thursday night of Hell Week, who's gonna be there? And I'm sorry to say, Perry dog, you're not going to be there. So I want you to wave to these gray ghost ships out there, because that's where you're going come this Wednesday night, this Thursday night. And of course, I'm giving them the finger, and I'm being rude, and I'm being, whatever.
Perry dog.
Like a snot coming out of my nose. He's like, yeah. Okay, Perry dog. Now, when I roll onto your ship, Perry dog, with my SEAL team, I don't want you to forget about me. I don't want you to act like you don't know me on there. Come up and say hi to Instructor
That's
Hawes.
great.
So he's begging me. And then he's like, all right. He's like, Perry, no, sure I am. You're not going to make it through Hell Week. I am going to bet you I will resign as an instructor if you make it. And when you don't make it, you got to give me a case of wild berry power bars. Back in the day, power bars.
Oh, power bar.
Yeah. They're basically like solid rocks when they're cold, but that was the best thing going. Yeah. So, long story short.
Did you ever have any doubt you'd get through Hell Week? I mean, did you have any seeds of doubt? Like, I don't know, maybe I can do this.
No, I knew I was either going to die or make it through.
Wow.
I just couldn't see myself. Like, I was listening to a lot of Tony Robbins at the time. And Awaken the Giant with him was very instrumental in me getting through there.
Yeah.
And it was about building leverage on me. And I really understood that, one of the things that Tony Robbins does that's great is you associate pleasure and pain to everything. And, I thought about how great it would be to be victorious at the end of that week. Yeah. And then I thought of how horrible it would feel to call my grandfather and tell him I sucked.
Yes.
Right. So here I am, I'm limping. I'm like, if my leg could hold out, I'd do it. So anyways, now I've got me and my two friends, right? I won't say their names, but we were called the Beef Crew because we were big guys, but we had discrepancies in height. And in Hell Week, you're in boats all by height. And we figured by Tuesday night, to be enough quitters, we'd all end up in the same crew. So we just had to hold on to that.
Yeah.
So I convinced them all to cami up with me, and I painted "Bring It On" my forehead. That is insane, right? That is insane, right? So our proctor, who is kind of like one of the instructors who's in charge, who has your best interest, he's your counselor. He takes care of your affairs for you. He comes in there, well, he's like, you got to take that off. They're already talking about killing you guys. Like, Perry, they are coming to kill you. They've got an entire team assigned for you. And I'm like, what am I, take it off now? They're not going to do it? Of course they're going to do it, right? Yeah. So again, this is where that fire that I'm going to talk about that became my addiction was anger.
Yeah.
Right? Anger is my addiction, right? One of them. And so I'm like, okay, well, I could say blank you, right? So I'm going to put it on there, and it's basically a blank you. So they call me out in breakout, which is you're all laying in a tent, sleeping, and then all of a sudden they start throwing explosives and shooting machine guns that are blanks, but they're really loud, and it's all supposed to scare you. And they're immediately calling for Perry's boat crew over here. Right now, everyone in my boat crew is a sniveling wimp at this point. Like, oh my God, what's going on? Perry, what are you gonna do? And again, they're not playing the game, right? The instructors wanted me to make it through, right? They're crushing me because I have to be the example. Yeah. Right? I have to be the example because no one should be doing what I'm doing at this point.
Right.
So they call me over there, and one of them says, all right, Perry, I have no doubt you're too stupid to quit. You're not going to quit, but here's what you're going to do. Because the next evolution, we had to row down and do rock portage, which is very dangerous. He's like, on your way to rock portage, I want you to tell everyone in the boat crew why they're going to quit because of all the attention that they're going to get for being in your boat crew. And they were right. No one made it out of my boat crew but me.
Really?
And,
wow.
Yeah. And, so again, I ended up running on my leg in Hell Week until it became a complete break. So I had a complete fracture at the end of it, but I made it through. Like I completed all the evolutions.
You're doing it on a broken leg, basically?
Yeah. Wow. So I go to the hospital, they're like, hey, we're going to put you on a bone scan and, this and that. And we're going to see. And all of a sudden they're like, you got a broken leg, dude. Get on some crutches right now. Like holy smokes, how did you do this? And, and that was a really big thing for me. That was like a high point for me. It was a big achievement for me. But that's just the beginning of your SEAL team career, right? That's the big first 6 weeks, really. That,
Yeah.
and then you go through Buds, and Buds was an amazing time. But I remember in Hell Week, and this is something that used to infuriate me, which again is I remember being there, and here I am patting myself on the back for making it. Right, I'm there because I'm that angry. And I'm watching all these guys thank Jesus. And I would like be
really?
frothing mad. Like
Ugh.
frothing mad. And like, what are you doing? You did this. No one did this for you. And I would attack them for it. And I had a nasty habit because all my friends back in Massachusetts, that most of them were Catholics, and they all had mother, father, regular families, and they were going to Catholic school. And all of them were doing the same exact stuff that I did, right?
Yeah,
Like none of them were doing anything different.
Yeah, it seemed totally false to you.
It was totally, and they're going to the school this time, and then a couple times, like for their for their big Catholic religious things, them getting confirmed, I'd go and I would always be creeped out. Like my radar would go off on creepiness on all the priests in there, right?
Did you say your grandfather was molested by priests, right?
Yes. So, and I didn't know this at that point. But growing up, I just saw they were so plastic and fake, and it was just so whatever. So I started challenging and seeking out Christians who said they were Christians and were doing this, and I would try to shake their faith. God forgive me. I hope I didn't cause anyone to turn. And everyone I did, I hope they turn back to them. Don't let me be their stumbling block. But, I used to seek them out and be like, okay, let's talk about the Bible. Open up your Bible. Let's go to Genesis.
Did you have to put a lot of study into this? I mean, being able to.
I was smart. So I just look at it and I would just sit there and I would be like, okay, what do we know? We have science that, I would use all the typical tactics. What do we know? We know the world is this. I know that the light from that star is 7 billion years old. You're telling me that the world was created and like this is, how is this different from Odin? How is this different from Zeus? All on their mountain, all they're doing, and I could connect all, because I don't know them anymore, thank the dear. I used to know everything about all the pantheons.
Yeah.
I used to know them all. So I'd be like, this is just a parallel of this, that, the other thing. Right. And it was awful what I would do. Right. And so anyways, I get through SEAL training, and that should be the end of the story, right? Jason's redeemed and Jason's good to go.
So you get done and you're the king. I mean, you're the king of your world. You have completed this incredible test of strength and mental, the mental anguish you went through and overcame it. You would think you had reached the summit, right? That you can now go about your life, and your abandonment wound would be fixed at that point.
Well, now I think I'm going to pour camaraderie into the abandonment wound. Right. So it's going to be womanizing and camaraderie, right? Conquering and camaraderie, right? I wanted to be a Viking all over again. Right. And here I am, and that's what I'm going to do. But at the point I wanted to fight, I didn't want to do the work. I didn't have any work ethic, really. I mean, I had some, but it was more of, hey, when it's time to go to fight, it's all in, let's do it. But it wasn't like, hey, it's time to build up, do that mundane stuff. I was like, I don't want to do that. I was still a broken, terrible person at heart with a gaping wound. I was seeing, when you have a wound, you don't see the world clearly. You don't see anything clearly. You're staring through the hole of your chest, and you're staring through your wound, and it taints everything you do. It taints everything you do, and everything. Nothing is pure, or nothing is legit, nothing is right, because it's that wound that you're reaching through, that filter to get to it. Yes. Right. So it taints, it turns everything to mud. Right. It turns everything bad that you do, because you're reaching through that wound and you're not doing it for the right reasons.
Yes. So you started conquests with women, or were you looking for
continuing the conquest with women? Right. So it was, hey, I'm going to get myself a solid girl, and then I'm just going to, do whatever I want on the road and be a rock star on the road and all this stuff. But the other thing is, I never tied this up in music is extremely powerful as a tool for the enemy or for the Lord. Right. There's a reason why most of our faith was memorized through songs, right? Yes. Lyrics are important. Music is important. And if your kid is listening to secular music, it is going to suck them straight to hell. It did to me, right? I already had all these strikes, and now I'm listening to people who are going through the same thing to me. And guess what? Their superpower is anger too. and they're doing all this stuff and they're saying all this stuff. I carved Slayer in my arm with a razor
Wow,
blade.
really? I don't
Like,
think I
how
knew that.
stupid is that?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? You know, so
Yeah.
just
So you
just
found a
abs-
fellowship with that, you know,
right. I'm like, here's
commonality.
this, and that's what pulled me
Yeah.
to Satanism.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and I never found anyone to connect with or do any of that other stuff. But I remember my mom, the one tough thing she ever did is she found that book and she's what this, and I lied and said it's part of a school prize. She's like, I don't believe that. And she took it and threw it away, and that was the end of it. Right. But that I wanted so to be a part of a family so bad. I wanted to be a part of something so bad that I was wanting to pretend in something I didn't even believe in, which was that it existed. But I wanted, I could connect if I could put on my jean jacket with all my patches and all that stuff. I was declaring who I was, and others would see that. And I was doing that in a neighborhood in South Boston, and where I would have to fight all the time because I was what was called a hick, and they were all preps.
Yeah, me too.
Right. And so they would come at me, but I could fight. And I wasn't afraid. And I'll fight all of you. I don't care. Right. And so, again, so be careful what your kids listen to. You need to know your lyrics. Melissa and I have talked about this. We get nostalgic when we didn't care about lyrics. And all of a sudden we're sitting there singing and dancing to your kids in the kitchen. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, what are
they singing about? Yeah.
And you're just like, holy smokes, this is permanently off the list.
Yep. Yeah.
Like I used to like that song American Band, right? That's all like B do that song.
Roadies? Is it?
I like Rob Zombie's, but we're an American band. We're coming to your town.
For young Chiquitas in Omaha.
Right. It's all about groupies. It's all about groupies hooking up with the band.
Yes. Yep.
Right. It's all about sex. And I'm like, my daughter's singing this. What is wrong with me? I was just thinking American flag, patriotism.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. We're an American band, and now I'm like, I got to take that off the list.
I know. I've ruined songs for many people in my household when they think it's just a song, a nice little melody they're singing along. Do you know what they're singing about? Do you know what the song, I just want to use your love tonight, that catchy little ditty? Well, it's a one night stand while your girlfriend's out of town.
Yeah. And good golly, Miss Molly. Little Richard.
Sure, like the bone. Is that
sure
what he
likes
said?
To bone. Sure likes to bone.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. I mean, geez.
Right. All these songs. I remember my grandma.
We could go on all day about this.
Popping around to the oldies.
Oh, yeah.
And they were just about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but just in a lighter tone and more obscure way.
Yes.
Versus your Cardi B now, who just does you a solid by saying it straight out. So breaks.
Yeah.
Don't let them listen to that. Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So music normalizes stuff. It was my accelerant to what I was doing. So if I wanted to be angry, I would dump the gasoline of the angry music on it. And now I am like supernova hot and I can go through my fear. I'm terrified of heights. I'm jumping out of planes, right? I'm trembling with fear. But if I could get angry enough and listen to the most angry stuff, I would be saying, F it. If I die, whatever, I'm worm food as I go out the window because I'm so angry.
Wow.
So this is the war that's going on inside me, right? And it's all because I have an abandonment wound and I don't think I'm worth anything. And I don't know if I didn't think I was worth anything. That's not, I was mad that no one thought I was worth anything. That's what it was. Because I knew I was smart. I knew I could do anything I put my mind to, but I was pissed that no one else could see that. And no one ever affirmed me.
Nobody fought for you, like you said. I think that's a huge thing. No one ever
fought for me, right? And so I was like, okay, all right, well, so anyways, so I go off and I do that. And, I went to Iraq, I went to Kosovo, Southeast Asia, Colombia. I look back fondly about my memories of the SEAL teams. They weren't all great. I've had my friend die in my arms, from a gunshot wound to the head from somebody from his own side. The lieutenant shot him in the head. And, I love my time in the SEAL team, but so here I am, I come back from Iraq. I'm going to fast forward, I'm in an unhealthy marriage. We don't even know each other. She basically takes care of my dog and we come back and we're in a honeymoon period for a week or two. And then I go out of town. Right. So here I get out, I'm in Iraq and to make a longer story shorter,
No.
I passed kidney stones, and in searching for kidney stones, they find that I have some masses in my body. I have a mass on my kidney, I have a mass on my adrenal gland, and I have a mass on my lung. And they, the wellness, basically send me back during my tour. And I'm like, I'm going to do my time.
How old were you
And
at this time? Like mid-20s or?
This was 2004.
Oh, okay. So we're the same age. So you were like
Right.
30 or
Yeah,
something.
somewhere around there, right? So I was
Yeah.
born in 72. So
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it was on my birthday, as a matter of fact. I remember on my birthday, I'm deploying to Iraq. I'm in Germany. I am having a hard time peeing, and then all of a sudden it hits me. And I'm like, I could stay here in Germany or I can go to Iraq. I'm like, I'm going to Iraq. So I'm the medic. I have my assistant medic pull out the morphine from the Connex box, and I'm blasting morphine in my legs. And in the movies, when you take morphine, it's like, well, that's when you do it IV. When you're doing it from the syrettes that you have that are these pressure, mounted auto injectors, they're IM, and they take 30 minutes to kick in. So I am literally writhing on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely miserable waiting for this to kick in. And then all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, hey, all right.
Finally
so we land
in
Iraq, right? And we go and we get to go from, Baghdad airport to the green zone. That's where we were going. And that's the most dangerous stretch of road anywhere in Iraq. That's where all the IEDs are and everything else. I'm the turret gunner. I'm high as a kite right now. I'm rocking like 3 times the amount of morphine I should probably have at this point because it was taking so long to kick in. But I feel great. And the only other guy, you got your pilot, you got the guy who's driving. He knows where he's going. He knows the route. You got your navigator there who knows everything about. And then you got your comms guy. And my comms guy was like 4 foot, 5'2", so he couldn't get in the turret. And then there was me in the turret, right? And I'm just like, hey guys, I'm ready to be in this turret right now, but I'm just telling you, you guys need to tell me if I should shoot because I feel real good right now. So we're going straight to the hospital for me because I'm really messed up right now. And we almost wreck in a sandstorm and lock it up. And I think it's the best time ever. But anyways, I go to Iraq. They find out I have this stuff that we want to send you home. Like, no. So anyways, I deal with that. I get home in October of 2004, I think. Again, give or take some time. I'm trying to remember exact dates. And they're like, hey, listen, we don't know how long you're going to be around. This looks to be really aggressive over the holidays because I was going on vacation from being on deployment. Get your stuff in order because we don't know if you're going to be around much longer. And I'm like, I just come back from Iraq. I just come back from this, 9-month deployment to all these different places around the world. Now I'm going to die of cancer. This sucks. Right. So they sent me to Panama City, Florida for 4 years to get well and treatment, which was illegal for them to do at the time, but they did it. And that was a good deal for me. I went down there, and my thing is, if I'm not going to die some 98-pound cancer patient. If I come down here, I'm going to be a rock star in Panama City, Florida. Right. I'm going to party out. I'm going to go out like a rock and roll legend down there. So I do that for like a year. My marriage is miserable. We didn't know each other, and now all of a sudden there was no more honeymoons to go through anymore. And we were going to go our separate ways. But in the process of all this stuff going on, a book that saved my life, saved my soul, my eternal soul, made it into my world. And it was, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. Right? That book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. I'm going to pull it up on screen. So, I don't have.
It's an amazing book.
It for somebody that was like me, right? I'm going to pull it up here and share the screen because every Christian should have this in their library. Mine's out on loan right now, but it's by Norman Gessler and Frank Turek, right? And this is I Don't Have Enough Faith. And it's basically the scientific case, right? The scientific case for creationism, and then the scientific case, evidence-based case that Christianity is true, right? So here I prided myself on us being a scientist. Okay, I prided myself, but also God put someone in my life around this time. There was an instructor there that was there with me. We were both instructors. We were in Panama City, Florida, and I was teaching 6-man mini subs that go underwater. The SEALs go in, they go underwater, and they can come up anywhere in the world where they attach to nuclear submarines. It's really cool stuff, right? So we spent a lot of time with a lot of downtime out there while these boats are on these 12-hour dives, you're out there following around to make sure that no one, I was the medic, right? And I would make sure if anyone, had a diving accident, I would treat them, and he was there to make sure to grade them on certain things or whatever. So he was a Christian, and he was one of those guys where I came at him with everything I had. Everything I had. I came at him with every bomb I had, and it rolled right off him. And most of the time he had a comeback. And if he didn't need a comeback, he'd say, I don't know that. I'll get back to you.
I was going to ask if you had ever encountered anyone like that in all of your.
He was the only one.
Tearing
here's
people
the
down.
thing: he never got mad. He always laughed when I would say some stuff that was insulting.
He didn't get defensive.
He didn't get defensive ever. And here's the thing: he had so much peace. He was the only guy SEAL I knew that was peaceful. Right now, I have encountered other things. Now, here's the other thing for people out there who have people in law enforcement or people in first responders or SEALs or whatever. I have yet to see a SEAL who's not an atheist or who's not a Christian be well adjusted after combat or going overseas and doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right. They're all broken in some way, and you may not see it in their public persona. You may not, whatever. But the guys who were the most inoculated and the most normal and had the healthiest families were those guys who had Christianity.
Yeah, I believe it.
Right. They had Christ to lean on, and everything washed off their back. And that's what he was. So he was kind of like a guide, and he was answering questions that I would have from this and that. So then this book, and within the first third of it,
did he give you the book? He gave you the book?
No.
Oh, okay.
My ex found it in her, like, I don't know, someone gave it to her to give to me or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, now in that book, within the first third of it, I go from atheist to agnostic, right? I'm like, okay, there's no way this is an accident. I just don't know who did this yet, right?
Yes.
And then the end of it, at the end of it, I'm like, hey, this is a lot of evidence. There's nothing else that comes close. If anyone's going to write, it's the Christians. I'm going to do that. And I became an intellectual Christian, which means that I had no Holy Spirit in me that I knew of at this time. I was lying in bed, and I said, okay, I've hit the critical point where it's unreasonable for me not to believe this anymore, right? This is all going to be rational. I'm a rational Christian. Yeah. I prayed the prayer, and I don't know if I had hallucinated or what, but my body tingled from head to toe lying in bed. Wow. And my tongue wanted to do stuff. Yeah. I don't know if it was tongues, but it wanted to do something.
I love when you bring that up.
And I know you do.
Come on. It did.
So, and but again, I'm just like, this is really weird. And it's happening to me in bed. Did I really do it? Did I really imagine it?
Yeah.
Was there anyone there to see it? No. I'm like, there's enough there. Right. I go to the gym the next morning, and it's my playlist time, and I want to go bench 500 pounds. Right. And I'm hitting all my stuff, and I hit my playlist to go to my anger and to start ramping up Hulk mode. And I hit God Hates Us All, which is my go-to. And it starts, and I almost I got to hit stop. I got to hit stop. Wow. I'm so turned off by it. And now I can't listen to any of my playlists.
Wow. That is such an incredible endorsement for that book. I mean, I've been recommending it to people all the time too, ever since I read it. I was already a Christian, but I thought, what an amazing piece of, compilation of information for people that are rational minded. And it's incredible. Yes. So
if you have a scientist atheist mind, it is the antidote for that madness.
Yeah, that's it.
Right. So again,
so something happened to you, to your flesh, right?
To my flesh. Yeah. Something happened to me. I'm there, and but I'm still a sinner. I just knew I couldn't tolerate anyone talking bad about God.
Yeah.
Right, because somebody made all this, but I didn't read the Bible all the way. I didn't know. I knew all. I mean, I could quote weird, like Old King Testament scripture that I would memorize from movies and from everything else. It was just, completely different stuff, and or it was just,
something dramatic happened.
Yes, and sorry, I don't want anyone calling in today, but so the other part of this is now, I'm starting to go through the word, and my friend, this is where people stumble, right? So now he's a dispensationalist. So he's showing me the Haggai stuff, and he's trying to show me new world stuff. And I'm like, none of this stuff makes sense. Like, you're refuting all this stuff. So I don't think you got it right either. So I go to, a church with a good band and whatever. I go to an Alpha class and I go to a Methodist church, right? And I go to an Alpha class and I sit through it and I'm like, okay. As a matter of fact, the Alpha classes that were after the Alpha classes when I did the prayer, right? So that's a little there. And I remember telling the guy, I'm like, I'm leaving. You know, like I'm going my own separate way. My wife's going, my ex at that point is going up to, soon to be ex, is going up to Charlottesville. I'm going to go to Boston. We're going our separate ways. He's like, you're going to Boston? He's like, you don't understand how lucky you are. I'm like, why? He's like, Park Street Church is there. And I'm like, what the heck's Park Street Church? He's like, Gordon Hugenberger is there. He's on the radio. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. And then I started researching that. I'm like, got excited. So I went down. I met Gordon. Right. I met Gordon. And Gordon was exactly what I needed at the time. So you guys have heard and watched the show, you heard me say this. Gordon Hugenberg is one of the brightest minds in Christianity. He's also one of the most science-oriented pastors you'll ever come across because his flock is majority of college professors and college-educated people from around Massachusetts. Boston has more colleges per capita than almost anyone, right? It's all colleges up and down there. And guess what? The civics guy, the civics head at MIT is in the congregation. The Harvard science lead is there. And they're counting on Gordon. They're counting on Gordon to not feed them a bunch of lazy theology.
Exactly.
If he gets up there and says the world is only 3,000 or 4,000 years old, they're all going to get up and walk out because they can go prove that in their lab tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Just what you needed.
So I'm there and, and again, there's Holy Spirit there, but it's not what my Holy Spirit needed. I was there it's notes. It's a PhD. Every sermon's a PhD level class. And I'm just downloading how he handles the science and all of it, right? How he's handling this and how he could take a verse with Deborah driving the spike through someone's head and pull meaning out of that. And I'm just like I could have read that 1,000 times. I wouldn't know. And he finds a way, right? Yeah. And we became friends and I was talking to him, but I don't agree a lot with everything him theologically now, right? So anyways, the ex ends up coming up. We're going to give it one more last go. We end up having a kid. Our kid has autism. I'm on the Boston Police Department. I'm doing all my old stuff again, right? My son now has autism. I'm in complete folding on Christianity. I'm not folding on faith, but I'm in a crisis of faith because I'm watching my kids struggle. I'm like, how could God do this to my kid? This is awful. Like everyone's saying, what a beautiful, you're a good father, this, that, the other thing. And I'm just, my anger is starting to feed on this right now. I'm starting to poke holes in things and all that. End up deciding to walk away from a great career at Boston PD to help my son and go to Charlottesville where the Virginia Institute of Autism was and where my ex's family was and family and friends to try to throw everything we could throw at this autism problem. I get a job bodyguarding a guy worth $52 billion who's now worth, I think, 100 and something billion dollars now. Through all that, right, I am I don't want to say backsliding. I believe in God, but I am definitely a carnal Christian. I believe I have to clean my tab before I die. So I need to just pray the prayer.
Fire insurance.
I'm the definition of fire insurance, right? So anyways, long story short, marriage blows up. And I now own a gym and I'm training people to go into SEAL training. I'm working for another organization doing corporate security. I meet Lauren.
Because she came in the gym, right?
Came in the gym, yeah. And she was getting ready to move to Maine, right? So she was getting ready to leave. And, so here I am. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm mentoring men. I've tried to pair, I was letting heroin addicts because, again, I missed that. I skipped that. How could I skip that part? During my last deployment, I lost my little brother to heroin. And when I went to his funeral, none of his friends were there because they were dead already to heroin. And that rocked me. I said, all right, I am done making third world hellholes safer. I am coming home to make Boston safer. And I decided right then and there to walk away from my career at 16 years, no pension, no nothing. I'm done because it's about the mission for me. It's not about anything else. So, So after I find out I'm not dying of cancer, which I never closed that loop either. Sorry, guys. So, so right around this time, I find out, the timeline might be a little blurred, but basically I find out I'm not dying of cancer. I had a very bad parachuting accident. So they think the mass on my kidney might've been a blood clot. I do have a mass on my adrenaline gland. They end up pulling that. It turns out to be nothing. So I have no right adrenaline gland. And then the stuff in my lungs, they say, oh, it must be artifacts. So now I'm not dying. Now, so now my brother Danny, who's no longer with us, he ended up dying of cancer, miss him very much. He's like, this is your one and only chance to be on Boston Police Department. You are 37, you're going to be 37. That's the cutoff age, or you have to be hired before you're 37. So the academy started in May or June 3rd or something, and my birthday is June 19th. So this is my one and only chance to do it. So I go up there, I smoke the test, I go through Boston, and that's how I became a Boston cop, Boston SWAT guy. And again, I apologize for jumping all over this place. I don't have any notes, and I'm just trying to go.
No, it's great.
It's not important.
The Holy Spirit's guiding you.
So anyways, I'm up there, so now we're in Charlottesville, and now I left my SEAL team career at 16 years. I left an extremely great paying SWAT job on Boston Police Department, a dream position. I walked away after Sandy Hook happened because I was bodyguarding a guy worth $52 billion, and he could afford 1,000 people like me. And I wanted to help every family because that was an autistic kid that walked in and shot up Sandy Hook. Yeah. Right. That was an autistic kid went in there and did that. So I'm like, I got to be a part of this. So anyways, now I'm in a gym. It's also an active shooter training facility. I'm training people, going mentoring. I'm trying to pair heroin addicts. I was letting all the heroin addicts from the restaurant industry work out in my gym for free in the morning.
That's
amazing. I was pairing them with veterans to try to mentor them. I
just want to say how selfless that is of you at all these times in your story where you gave up what you wanted for yourself to try and better your community. And I know how passionate you are about impacting your own home, your own community, your own neighborhood, instead of, going overseas, and that can fit in too. But what are you doing in your own backyard to meet the needs of people? So I just see you doing that over and over again, putting aside your dreams and goals, like when your brother passed away and all of that, just to impact the people around you.
So I have a good friend, Mike, and I want to give him props. Mike Ferrugio, Mike Ferrugio.
Hey, Mike.
Mike Ferrugio, he was fighting for me this whole time. He wanted me to come to Charlottesville to work for his police department. I ended up working for another shortly. I did 10 months of rural policing, wanted nothing to do with it. But we're still friends, and he's working out in the gym, and he's trying to get me to go to this program called Operation Restorative Warrior.
Mike that did that. I didn't never knew that.
And I'm like, what is it about? Oh, it's for suicidal. I'm like, I am not suicidal.
Don't
never thought about killing myself.
Frame it like
at
that.
All, right? Yeah. I'm like, what are you saying, Mike? That's not me. And he's like, no, it's designed to help them. It'll help everything up to that. I'm like, I know there are vets out there hurting way more than me. I don't want to take one of their spots. He's like, you need to go. I'm like, no. Right. So I dodged this for like 2 years. It seems like, right. And finally now I'm in this crisis of faith, marriage is imploded. I'm dating Lauren. And for the first time ever, Operation Restored Warrior is in Lake Tahoe, which is my favorite place on planet.
Oh, that's how God got you in there.
Yeah. And Mike's like, hey, guess what? ORW is in Lake Tahoe this year.
You're like,
and you know what? He's like, I'll pay for everything.
Oh, wow.
I'll buy your plane ticket. He's like,
That's
go.
Incredible.
And I'm like, all right, I'll go. Now, before this, Lauren and I were talking. Now, Lauren's a diehard atheist, right? Because she was educated in Northeast. Again, don't trust your kids to the school system to freaking jack their mind and tell them that it's irrational, right? Now, and she'll tell you about the one school teacher who was her ray of light that she looks back as one of her breadcrumb droppers, who was her music teacher, right? Who she has got thanked and went back and said, hey,
thank God for those
I'm a Christian now. And he's like, you're not the only one to tell me that. And all that stuff. So, good stuff. And she'll in her testimony, she would come in there like this really arrogant, know-it-all 16-year-old and be like, ask these like God questions and drop bombs on him. And he would just roll right off them and you'll be fine, right? So anyways, I said to her, I'm like, I'm in this crisis of faith. I need to either I need to be all the way Christian or I need to go back in the agnostic camp because I can't unsee creationism. I can't unsee DNA, right? So she's like, I'll go on this. And she'll tell you in her testimony that she was laughing to herself saying, we're going to get rid of this stupid Jesus stuff.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to get him on my side of this and we're going to be a rational family and we're not going to deal with any of this stupidity. Well, a year or so goes by and we both get baptized. But anyways, I go to ORW, and ORW is something that you can do free from this course or from this program. You can go to Mike Lindell's program and we'll cover that at the end. But I go to ORW and I transform radically. I get introduced to Jesus. I used to think Christians were wimps, all this other stuff. I'm used to this really anemic looking, pretty
beta male
Jesus.
Yeah.
And it totally changed me 100%.
Wow.
Lauren will tell you I was sneaking calls because you're supposed to not do it, but whatever. Yeah. So I'm calling her and she's like, your voice changed by the second day. All the anger and tension in your voice was gone. You were a completely different person. And then I made the mistake of telling her after I got healed, I'm like, I got healed. I didn't abandon me when I want kids. Because that's never why I never wanted kids, because I knew that my wife would abandon me for the kid. I knew that would happen. Right. And now I'm like, no, I understand what's going on. I want to have kids. And she didn't yet because she's still an atheist.
You were saying this on the phone from RW?
On the phone from RW. And now
you're like, plans have changed.
She's freaking out thinking that, whoa, we had a deal.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, I come back from that and I make it my personal crusade to get Lauren saved. So we start a small group in our house with all these other Christian couples. And we start doing a small group once a week. And I thought I was going to do all this deep teaching to prove Christianity to Lauren. And then we found out everyone's marriages were in the tank. Oh. And so we ended up doing John Eldridge's Love and War series. And Lauren fell in love with the idea of what a Christian marriage is, how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, almost a year. And finally, I'm so frustrated. I'm like, Lauren, like, what else do you need? Like all this stuff. And I'm like, you're never going to do it. And I never tried reverse psychology. Like the old manipulator in me would have tried that way sooner.
Sometimes it's that simple, huh?
Yeah. And I'm like, you're never going to. She's like, how do you know I'm not there right now? I'm like, Are you? She's like, yeah. And then we were both baptized on stage together at a church. So
praise the Lord.
So that's the end of the story, right? No. I know we're at an hour and 17 because now I still got to figure out how I became a pastor and everything else, right?
Yes.
So part of, I think, one of the challenges of the old ORW system, and it might not be that way now, is that there's very little, they stop the bleeding, but there's nowhere to walk alongside anyone. You don't get discipled. There's nobody who's there to live life with you as you go forward, right? And that's what your church should be. So now I'm looking for a church as a Christian, right? I am a great white shark walking into sweater vest churches where the dudes have never had a freaking callus on their hand. They've never been in a fight. They definitely don't have any blood in their hands. And I can't relate to anyone in there, right? It's all seeker-friendly garbage. So for like the first 2 weeks, I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, wait a minute. It's the same thing every week. Like, they're not getting to the meat and potatoes. They're not dealing with the challenges. They're not talking about what I'm struggling with, or this guy's struggling, or that guy, or that guy, or that guy. And I'm just like, this is all plastic and fake. So I wandered around looking for a real church for over 5 years.
Wow.
And then COVID hit, right? And now Lauren and I, in the beginning, I took COVID more serious than anyone in the beginning. I was the first security firm in the nation to call it a big deal. I was calling in a Fortune 200 companies phone calls and saying, you guys got to deal with this. This is going to be huge. Now, I didn't know if it was going to be phony or what, but I was watching footage of people in China dropping dead in the street.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like,
that was very scary.
So I treated it legit. So we're like, okay, we're going to sell our house and we're going to move around families. Lauren's parents are in their 70s. We're going to go to northern Maine, where it's red. They live in southern Maine, which is blue, but we're going to try to get around each other. And so we're there to be able to take care of them. form a relationship before it's time for us to like go hands-on care for them, right? Because they're in their, her parents are older than mine, even though there's 16 years between us.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her parents are way older than mine. So we go up there and we're getting ready to go up there. And a friend of mine says, "You're going to Maine? Dude, you got to see this guy, Ken Graves." Right now, we were still on the fence about Maine. We were talking about it. And then I saw Ken Graves, Judas was a Democrat sermon.
Yeah.
And I showed that to Lauren. She's like, "We're going to Maine, aren't we?"
Wow.
You know, not only are we going to Maine. So here we are. It's the pandemic. It's the insanity part of the pandemic. No one would let us and our newborn sleep in a hotel between Virginia and Boston. I mean, Virginia and Maine, because hotels weren't taking people. Right.
Oh,
so
that's right.
it was like a height of the
that was
insanity.
so ridiculous. Yeah.
Right. So we're trying to find a house to rent. We got 3 dogs, one of them being a pit bull, the other being a mastiff, another one being a lab. Right.
Yeah.
We found one house in the entire state of Maine. Maine is a huge state.
That would rent to you.
That would rent to us. And it was 3 miles from Ken Graves.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing.
On the same street as Susan Collins and Stephen King.
I
was 2 blocks from them.
So right? God moved you there, and
so
He
God
had something
moved me there.
For you there.
And when I walked into Calvary Chapel, Bangor, I saw everything that I wanted a church to be. Ken Graves was a superhero to me. He's a spiritual father to me. You know, and we drove all night, and I had to go meet him. We drove right there, and I pull up. I got my Trident Shield car. It's got stickers and decals all over it that make it look like a pretty impressive vehicle, whatever. And he's out there rolling boulders off a trailer because Maine has ordered him to do services outside to protect his flock from a vehicle attack. He's rolling boulders off. I roll up there, shake hands with him, hands covered in calluses, scars all over him. He's looking at my scars. He's like, "Man," he's like, "cool scar." He's like, "Check out mine." Lifts up his arm. He's got a scar like this long underneath his. He fell on a chainsaw while it was going from a tree, and it almost cut him in half. Right.
But anyways, this is the manly man you need.
Yeah. So I go there, and I found Ken showed me that this, like, people drop off. They don't take people to jail around him. They bring them to Ken. They bring him to Ken's residential Calvary disciple program.
Yeah.
Right. He was doing everything right. He had this compound. He wouldn't call it a compound, but he owns everything on this block. He's got his own this, that, the other thing. He's got a place for the guys to stay, a place for the girls to stay. And he was being a point of solution at the point of contact on the front line where the tip of the spear meets the flesh. That's where he was. And I'm like, this is everything I've ever wanted my pastor to be.
Yeah.
You know, this is everything. I want him to be real. He was real. He was fearless. He was talking about the issues. He didn't talk abstract. He would go head on it. The first time I showed up at his church, he was registering Republican voters inside the church.
Yeah.
First service. Holy smokes. This guy gets it. And I got to be great friends with Ken. And I wanted to stay there. And I wanted to study under him for a decade or more. And then our house didn't sell, and we ran out of money. You know, our house, which we should have been able to sell in Virginia, was a beautiful home, mountain views, running stream on the property, 7-step waterfall, absolutely gorgeous. People said it was going to sell in an hour, right? And it doesn't sell. And I'm going to Ken. I'm brokenhearted. Like, this is the dad I never wanted. Now, he's not old enough to be my dad, but that's how it felt like to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the guy who's not going to turn his back on me. This is the guy who gets me. Even when I would ask him questions he didn't agree with, it was, I felt like it was there. And now, God, my house isn't selling, and I can't afford to stay there anymore. On top of this, our marriage is at the worst point it's ever been at this point, because there's tension between her family and me and all kinds of ridiculous stuff going on.
Yeah. And
so now we got to go back to Virginia. Now I'm completely confused. Right? My heart's ripped out because my spiritual father's in Maine. I come back, I'm home. Like, I guess I'm not supposed to be a pastor. I'm not supposed to do any of this stuff. I'm not, whatever. And I start praying. I'm like, we blew $30,000 round trip moving. Right. When we took 90% loss to Trident Shield that year, we took 90% loss of revenue. right? Because if you don't have school, you don't have businesses, you don't need workplace violence
Yeah, right.
training, right? So now I'm there. I'm like, oh my God. And we're praying and we're praying and we're praying. And it hits me. I don't need you in Maine, Jay. I've got Ken in Maine.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What does he need me in Maine for? I don't, like, I can't out Ken Graves in Maine. You know, so now I'm like, okay, well, I pray the most dangerous prayer ever. And I encourage all of you guys to do this.
Yeah.
Is I got down on my knees and said, I have muddled this up. I've forced everything. You didn't want me to go to Maine. Thank you for giving me Ken's friendship, you know, because that was the hardest move ever. Everything in the world conspired to not let us get to Maine. I thought it was the enemy, but no, it was that door attempting to be God closing that door for us, kicking it open. Right.
Wow. That's powerful.
So I get on the thing and I'm just like, now I'm in a terrible place, right? Because we put in offer after offer on houses in Maine while my financials were good because we had 2 good years with Trident Shield before that. And we got out big cash from New Yorkers every time in Maine. Right. So we couldn't buy a house. We couldn't sell our house, couldn't do anything. Right. So anyways, I pray. I'm like, Lord, I'm out of this. Send me where you want me to go. Do me what I just submit to your will. Send me anywhere. Just send me nothing. I'm not, if you want me to go to Africa, I'll go to Africa. I won't like it, but I'll go. If you want me to go to Minnesota, I'll go to Minnesota. I won't like it, I'll go.
Wow, that is bold of you.
Wherever you want me to go, I will go. Right? Just, I need some downwind stuff. I want to see what it's like to work in your will instead of against
it.
So then, now, you know, I do all my research and it's clear Tennessee is strategically the best place for me to go. It's the most conservative place that will fit everything we need. I looked at Wyoming, I looked at West Virginia, I looked at all these other places, and the only place that made sense for us if we wanted to stay on the East Coast, right, was in the East Coast area, was Tennessee. And then so we scouted it out. You know, long story short, we make it here, and this is the part that's going to blow people away. Okay. There's a lot of parts this is going to blow away. So we put an offer in on a house down here. We were going to see a house here, and it was gone before we could, like, they sold it before we could even get there. All right. That tied that house up, right? It's gone. Right. We put in a couple offers other places. We got outbid on it. Now I'm back. I'm like, okay, I'm misreading this again. Right. I thought God was going to roll out the carpet. Now time has passed and I can't use my financials. Right. I've got my last year is a 90% loss to revenue. So I'm not going to qualify for anything. So I call Paul Lavelle. I say, Paul, I'm not in trouble. Not in trouble. I'm in a transition and I need some guidance. And I'm talking to him. And he, you know, next thing he mentions the podcast. You know, he's like, you do a podcast. He's like, let me talk to this. Within 2 weeks or whatever, I have a job. I can now qualify for loans. The house that we were driving to see, they backed out of the contract. Lauren saw it the second it hit the page. We put an offer and they accepted, sight unseen. Right?
Really?
Get this house. It's 44 acres, 15 minutes from downtown Johnson City. We close on the house. I look up 3 lines on the owners. Billy Graham used to own this house.
That's incredible. I love that part of your story. Wow.
I'm like, holy smokes, Billy Graham used to own this place.
Wow.
So anyways,
I didn't know how all that fit together with you and the move and the podcast. I guess I didn't put all those pieces together, the timing of that.
I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom. I'm like, so this is what it's like to work in God's will. This is what it's like to be Abraham and Jacob and have everything work out for you. Right? You know, I'm just like, things are falling in instead of doors getting slammed in my face and all these other, everything is being thrown wide open. So we end up, we put our house on the market. It sells in an hour. We have 3 offers in an hour.
Wow.
They buy it as is. So there's nothing to stop the sale. You know, everything works out down here. And I go, like, I got to wrap this up. So
that's so encouraging. I love what you said about, I want to see what it's like to work in your will. I think we should all say that. And you often encourage people to pray that dangerous prayer. If you're really surrendered to Jesus, you should be willing to do that. I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do because it's going to be a lot better than anything you can try to make happen in your own power.
Lauren and I corporately prayed that together.
That's awesome.
and it took off like a gun.
Yeah, it
I
sure
mean, we
did.
were off on this crazy ride, and all the dominoes just kept falling in our
Yeah.
direction. And then we get down here, and my intent is to start a men's ministry. I'm going to teach men how to be men. And I feel like we've lost that, and masculinize Christianity again, and do
Yeah.
all that. I do my first forging, 3-day course. You come Friday night, and then it ends Sunday night. And I tell you, half women show up. I'm like, what on earth am I going to do with women? I'm teaching people how to fight and shoot, but I'm lacing it all with discipleship. Everyone comes for the cool guy stuff. Everyone comes to be a better shot and to learn how to do Navy SEAL fighting and all this other stuff. But everyone leaves raving about God, and everyone leaves changed because of
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, Mike went through it, right?
Yes. Yeah, you get
And
them through the side door with the stuff, with the fighting and
here's the
the
shiny,
guns.
here's the
Yeah,
shiny, and Jesus comes up and puts him in his hold.
that's right.
But
It works.
so we're like, okay, it's going to be a men's and women's thing. We're just going to teach discipleship because not everyone's got a godly man in their life, and not every, so we're going to teach it to everyone, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm in the South. I'm going to find fire-breathing pastors in every corner. I'm going to find everyone's going to be a Ken Graves down here.
Yeah, that's what you expect, right?
And no, it's weak sauce all over the place. I go and I try to fall in with the local Calvary. Everything seems like it's going to be going good. There's a lot of weak leadership on there. I go to a Calvary pastors conference in Georgia, and
I remember
what I
that.
saw horrified me. It broke my heart. It was a bunch of the weak stuff, people embracing CRT,
Oh
people
gosh.
accepting other places closing and talking bad about ones that stayed open. And it was just like this. It was everything. Like I thought I was going to find Kens on every corner.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You figured it would be all Ken Graves, but that must be why he wanted you in Tennessee, right? Why God wanted you there.
So I walked away from that, and that ruffled a lot of the feathers, right? Because I was being groomed to not, to go into the Calvary brand and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I want no part of this. I'm going to do my own thing. In fact, I'm going to make it so ridiculously hard. I'm going to name it Patriot Crusader Mission. They're not going to know I'm a church. They're not going to know what I am. But you know what? I'm not going to get anybody who's confused about what I stand for with a name like Patriot Crusader Mission.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So are you saying there's a lot of variation among Calvary chapels?
Massive. You can have Ken. There's a Ken brand, right? And I didn't
That's
know
the
this.
brand I want.
Yeah, that's the brand I want. There's the Ken brand, and who's the Jerry Brown? Remember the guy with the cows? Was it Jerry Brown?
Oh yeah, Jerry Brown. Yeah, U-Turn for Christ.
Yeah, so he's got a Calvary out there as well. Him and Ken are part of the same brand, right?
Yeah.
The church is split completely, right? But it started as a hippie whatever movement, and that's what this whole Kelsey Grammer movie's about. Greg Lowry and Kelsey Grammer movie. And it's like, I don't know if I'm down with the hippie thing, whatever, right? I'm a red-blooded freaking warrior. I want to learn how do I navigate? Like, and so that's what I'm like, here I am. I'm going to create a church for people like me, for people who are veterans, who have done the ultimate, who have signed on the dotted line to say, I will give up to including the balance of my life for others. Right. And Jesus said, that those who will lay their life down for their friends, are blessed. Right.
Yes.
There's no greater love than that. Well, I've done it for people who hate me, for people who don't know me, for all that stuff. And I'm like, there's so many of us, and none of them are in church right now, or very few of them, because they don't feel welcome. They don't feel like you're speaking their same language. They don't like, that's the song. Like when you're suffering talking about how great life is and all that stuff, that's not what they see every day. They see the worst of humanity, and they need someone to address that and square it with the Bible and not the Christian pop music.
Well, I've learned a lot from you about what we should be seeking in our pastor. And one of those things is, are they talking about difficult issues in the news and in culture? Are they addressing them in church, or are they avoiding them? That's a really telltale sign of whether they're, willing to stand for the truth or not.
I am searching for a place for me to be fed. And the first thing I did is I looked this Sunday to see if anyone was talking about the cop problem.
And my pastor did. I had to just throw him some points for that.
That's great. And if they didn't talk about it, they're off my list. I'm not even going to bother wasting my time.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone in that church is thinking about that. How dare you run from it? The Bible applies to that lesson.
That's right.
The Bible tells you exactly what to do with that. Right? But you're going to run from it because you're in a series?
Yeah, got to stay on track. So you have not been able to find that yet.
Not yet. I haven't. I have been. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've got to write my own sermon on Sunday. I've got a ton of stuff going on the farm on that. It has not been my biggest priority in shifting a lot of resources to drive around to stuff. But I am starting to watch it. What I recommend everyone watch online first. Watch online, pick out key dates, see what their Memorial Day sermon is like if you're a veteran.
That's good.
Right? See, go back to 9/11 if it's the same pastor, the original 9/11, and see if they talked about it. See if they talked about it on me. So there are certain things that I check that are important to me. It doesn't have to be important to you. Whatever's important to you, but figure it out and watch that. So anyways, that's why we started Patriot Crusader Mission. I didn't feel like there was a church that was ministering effectively to people that were coming out of an ORW type program or cops who were really struggling. And we're really starting to get some traction on that.
That's great. Yeah. It sounds like the keynote speech you did really connected you to a lot of people looking for that.
Yeah. That was the opening flare, right? The opening shot to say, hey, I'm here. And now I'm building a reputation with the first responder community here. We had to build the infrastructure. We had to have something to show them. I had to build a library that they could go and look at and now come and see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's still one of Dallas's line. Come and see what we're trying to do here. And it's not for everyone. I'm not for everyone. I am not everyone's pastor. I will offend a great many people out there, and a lot of people can't handle what I have to say. And I'm sorry, but there are people that I'm trying to reach that it does resonate with.
I love to see you taking that intensity and that discipline and all of those skills you had that used to be channeled into anger and tearing down Christians and using them for Jesus, it's so powerful to see that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to say that if you want to join me, tomorrow is the 1st of February. And we're starting a 90-day challenge. And I've tried one of these before and I failed horribly. Body broke down, ton of excuses, whatever. And we're not going to let that happen this time. But we're starting our 90-day forging challenge tomorrow morning.
Awesome.
It starts at 9 o'clock. It starts whenever you want it to start. But 9 o'clock is the Bible study. We start off with the 4 pillars. With faith is everything that we wrap everything in. Then family. Then fitness, which is fitness and health, and then tactics, which is the prepper side of us, right? There's a definite prepper side to everybody that comes to here. They are either growing stuff or they want to protect themselves, their family. They want to be a part of the solution of the violence problem, right? Or so we're starting with your daily Bible or daily battle Bible study. We just wrapped up on, I think it was Matthew 20 today, 19 or 20 today. And, we'll start off every day with getting a heart of gratitude, right? Step 1. So thanking God. 2, pursuing a relationship with the Lord, right? So getting in his word and finding out his will for our life. And then 3, putting on the full armor of God to go attack the day, right? Now the other pillar, right? So we're deliberately pursuing God. We used to talk about this a lot and we've kind of fallen away. Everything has to be deliberate. You don't accident into a good relationship with anyone, right? You don't fall into a happy marriage. It's work, right? So then the next step is family. And every day you're going to choose someone in your family to make that's their day. That's the day that they're the center of your universe.
I love that.
Right. So you can't do them all at once in the beginning, right? Particularly if you're just starting from scratch and you're unmessing a bunch of mistakes, right? You're unmessing a bunch of mistakes. So every day you're going to say, okay, I'm making my wife the center of my universe today. She's going to know that the earth, revolves around the sun for me because of her, right? Like she's the center of that. And then it's going to be my daughter, and then it's going to be my other daughter, and then it's going to be this person, and it's going to be my mom, and then it's going to be that. And I'm going to and you pick them off day by day. And eventually you'll get them all to a saturation point where you can do more than one a day, but we're starting simple.
Yeah.
Right.
I love this.
And then the fitness portion or the health portion is changing your diet. I'm going to be doing a form of carnivore. I'm not doing 100% carnivore. It sounds crazy to me. I'm but I'm going to be doing a form of carnivore where I'm going low carb for the first month. And then, but I'm committing to working out, committing to getting up at 5 a.m. and working out in the morning, because every time I say I'm going to do it any other time, life gets in the way.
Yes.
There's an emergency on the farm. There's an emergency at work. Someone stops by that needs to talk. I'm a pastor. I got to be available. So I got to do it when no one would think to call me.
Yeah.
Right. And so
5 a.m.
5 a.m. If they call me at 5 a.m., it's a fight, unless it's an emergency. Right?
Yeah.
But so, working out in the morning, changing my diet, and you don't have to do what I do. You just got to do something. So try to improve your diet and try to improve your health by moving for an hour a day. I'm going to be doing 2
incredible.
hours.
I love it. This is so good. What is the account? So tell me about the accountability. So what will people do to stay on track?
Well, every morning in a Bible study, we're going to be talking about this, right?
Okay.
So when we meet in the morning at 9 a.m., whether you watch at that time or not, and it's all going to be done inside the Patriot Crusader Mission church group, right? So everybody's going to be posting there, and that's for you to post, hey, did it. Just log in and say you did it. And if you're lying, that's between you and God.
On you. Yeah.
Right.
You're lying to yourself.
So I'll post faith day one, post faith, right? And whether you were at the Bible reading that day or not, you can sound off while I'm doing it, or you can come in and say, yeah, you did it later in the day. You did it earlier in the day. Or guess what? If you don't start exactly when I do, it doesn't matter. You can do it 60 days from now, 90 days from now. It doesn't matter. Just whatever your 90 days are, we're going to continue this. This is supposed to be a new pattern on our life, right? And we want accountability. We want to know. So if I'm not there, call me. Be like, what's going on? Now, my Bible study at 9 a.m. sharp doesn't always happen that way. There's stuff on, it happens in the 9 o'clock hour. So just be there to see it. It doesn't, whatever. And then the tactics portion is for everybody who wants to get better at their warriorness. So the health component is one part, but it's how you move. It's cleaning your firearm, right? It's dry firing it. It's drawing it. It's doing stuff. And we're going to work through all that stuff for the next 90 days to make sure you're proficient in whatever weapon systems that, whether it's your hands, right? Or whether it's your pistol, you're able to do something. It doesn't matter if you're in a condo in New York where you can't go to the range and shoot, you can still do something. Yeah. And so that's what we're going to try to do. You can always go above what I'm doing. I'm just trying to make it a part of your normal life and to make it an easily digestible change.
It's awesome. Do you pick one thing from each category, or you do one category per day?
No, so the tactics portion is over the week. So if during this week, you're going to practice dry firing with your firearm, you're going to do practice from a draw, out, point, shoot, and you're going to do that. That's going to be your drill. We'll say that would be the tactics part. The physical portion, you're going to do something every day, and you're going to log into the fitness portion that day and said, I did a 5-mile run. I did whatever, a high intensity workout. I did that. The faith part is this, and then that's daily. And the family part is also daily. You can say, my wife, my kid, my
one
mother,
person per day
father,
until you build it.
Right. And then you're going to repeat them.
Yes.
You're going to repeat them. And if you only have your wife, well, guess what? Your relationship's going to get really good soon.
It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're doing. It's an effort to try to make myself accountable. I find that when I'm leading, I'm the best person I can possibly be. And when I'm not leading, I shrink back and I devolve.
Yeah,
right?
we all stagnate. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to, get everyone on there, and I want to share this with the community, because I know if we can do 90 days of deliberately pursuing God, of deliberately pursuing our family, of deliberately pursuing health, and deliberately pursuing, how to be more professional and how to be tactically sound, then everything in our life is going to be better.
I love it. I want to be part of it. I think it's incredible.
Awesome. So that starts tomorrow at 9. Again, you can start anytime you want. You can start a day from now, 2 days from now, 3 days from now, or 6 months from now, whatever. But I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I want you to hold me accountable. All right. Because I need you guys to fight for me like I'm going to fight for you. And on Wednesday nights, when we do our Christian Warrior Talk, guess what we're going to be talking about? How that week went with this. Who's struggling with what? What didn't work? What did work? I tried to make my wife first, and she blew up. And then we'll pray for you, and we'll figure out what you did wrong.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I love it.
That's what I want this to be. It's going to be more of a support group.
That's so good.
So,
Terribly
well,
needed.
yeah. Well, thank you guys
Jason,
for
you're amazing.
listening.
You are an incredible person. I just want to say I'm so blessed to be in your life, and you and Lauren are amazing role models of a godly marriage and the way you're raising your daughters and how you're putting Jesus first. I can see, I know your story, but I learn more every time I hear it. And the intentionality that Jesus had in putting you where you are came from that, that dangerous prayer that we should all pray. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited to just be able to do this with you every day.
Thank you. And you're a blessing, and Mike and the girls are a blessing to our life. The most important things to take away from this. So again, we talked about teaching points throughout, but God couldn't use me or wouldn't use me until I fully surrendered to him.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be that full surrender. I had to take my hand off the wheel and stop trying to stare at the way I wanted it to go. It had to be what he wanted to do. Right. So, I had another one, but I lost it. So, that to me,
That's huge.
submit to him, and then be deliberate in everything you do. You don't have to
Mhm.
take the mountain all one day. It's one handhold, one foothold at a time.
Yeah. Yes. Lauren said, "Well done, my love. All glory to God for your testimony. I'm grateful I get to be part of it."
Oh, I remember the last part. Thank you, Lauren. It's your day. Your better days are always coming. When you're a Christian, you can always say that no matter how good your life is now, when you get to heaven, it's going to be better.
That's so
Right.
good.
So again, remember so many of my brothers and sisters in law enforcement in the SEAL community look back at their glory days. Right. It's like the old football player remembering when they won the Super Bowl. Right.
Yeah,
And
glory days.
that's nothing. That's nothing to feeling the power of Christ. That is
Amen.
nothing to having the relationship you should have with your wife. That is nothing to having your daughter come up to you and say, "You're a good dada." That is the best thing in the world. And
Yeah.
it's only going to get better. And even if I lost it all tomorrow, when I get to spend eternity with them, that'll be even better. So.
Wow. That's beautiful. You're so right. We all need to get our priorities in order and stop living for the world and live for the kingdom.
Yeah, again, if you pursue the kingdom first, everything else falls in line.
Yeah, it does.
Well, thank you for listening to my story.
I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat. Jason, you have such power in your story, and you appeal to many different types of people, but you're so needed. Your honesty and your boldness and your courage to go against, these topics that you touch that other people don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. It's inspiring to see. And I've people have said similar things about Mike Lindell, the courage that he has, and I see the same in you. You're not afraid of the world, or you're completely sold out to Jesus, and you're a great role model for many.
Well, again, I'm very humbled to be here. All glory to God. I am the villain in this story, and Jesus is the hero. So again, if I should have started that off, and I meant to say, let me tell you a story in which I'm the villain and Jesus is the hero. And he truly made me, everything good of me is of him, and everything bad of me is me. So,
Well, it's a beautiful way to sum it up.
So thank you so much, everyone. So let's
Yeah.
get to the ORW course. I want to show you this,
Yes.
guys, the stuff that changed my life. Okay, I did the in-person one. This is a digital format, but it's still extremely powerful, and I want
It
to
is.
show you that. So we're going to go to Lindell Recovery Network. When you go in and you create your account, you go to the menu and you go to your addiction help. Okay, you go down, scroll all the way down. You're going to go to option C here. Okay, option C, and this is on LindellRecoveryNetwork.org. You click option C, you scroll down and you click Operation Restored Warrior. And then you got guides that you print out here, and then you click next, play, and you're in Operation Restored Warrior. Okay.
There you go.
So these are the same videos that we watched. These are the same teaching points that we watched. We were just in person and had the fellowship to go around with it. This is a beautiful and a costless and the biggest no-brainer you can do in your life is to go through that course and find out who Jesus really is and find out who you really are and why you're that way.
Everyone needs it, like you said the other day. This isn't an addict thing. This is everybody needs healing and can grow in their intimacy with Jesus.
100%. So again, you can do that. You can also go and support this program by going to My Pillow and buying, right now there's the My Pillow 2.0s out there. I was just looking,
2.0.
right? It's an
Look
all
at
new
that.
cool pillow.
King
You
pillow.
can, with the promo code for us is hope. You can get whatever level. The thing that you get people don't understand is with My Pillow, there's a sizing guide. It's that
Yes.
customizable, right? So you can get the
Jason, I got so good at this when I was on the phones for 4 months. I haven't gotten a chance to say my spiel for a while. I would say,
you want to get into
there's
it.
four different loft levels. White, yellow, green, and blue. So depending on the amount of fill that you want, if you want a softer or firmer pillow, you can choose according to it. You can go on the website and choose the fitting guide there. I like a flatter pillow, not flat, but medium, I guess. Some people like a really dense pillow. And if you don't like your pillow, by all means, you can swap it for another one. And the 60-day money back guarantee, it takes away any kind of fear over that. And the 10-year warranty. Mike has an amazing warranty on most
Yep.
of the products for, anything that breaks down with them, basically.
Yeah. So again, there's so many specials going on over there. Mike's got so many products. It's not just pillows. It's the slippers. Everyone I know who's bought his slippers is really happy with them. The topper is great. I travel with that. All this stuff. So promo code HOPE lets Mike know that you are watching this show and that's where you heard about it. So again,
Yeah.
please use promo code HOPE. We don't get anything for it. Like our salary doesn't go up, and the show just gets to keep going. All right.
Yeah.
So please, if you're going to buy anything from My Pillow or My Store, right? My Store being the other place, use promo code HOPE. And then the last way you can support us another way is go to the Lindell Recovery Network and donate. That is to help pay for all. Mike has spent how much money on this?
About $10 million out of his own pocket. And he just he keeps adding to that as we continue to make the site better and more user friendly and add features to it. So it does cost money to operate it, but you don't get charged a fee for anything on that site. It's
So this is all
incredible.
because Mike is trying to be a loyal, obedient server of God and to help the
Yes.
least among us, which are the addicted, right? So
Yeah.
again, those are the ways you can support this. I hope you enjoyed this,
It
and
was so good.
I look forward to hearing your testimony on Thursday.
Hey, I have a tough act to follow, and I know the last one I did, I was kinda upset about it at first, and Jason, you were like, "Melissa, I want you to be happy with this. So let's, think it over how you want it to go, and let's do it over. Take as much time as you want." And that was very gracious of you. So instead of trying to do that this time, I will try to follow I like how you put teaching moments into your story, and so people could gain insight from what you went through and how they could avoid the same thing. And that's what we always try to do with when we bring people on to share their
If
testimony.
they let us,
If we can interject,
they
because we
ever
got to
breathe.
we got to coach them beforehand. This is a three-way conversation. We're having an interactive conversation here. That's what we
Yeah.
want to do. But I want to do the same thing you did. So I took copious notes so I can try to lay out my story in a way that'll be helpful for people like you did.
Hopefully that you don't jump around and bounce around as
No,
everyone
you
and
did
stuff that I
great.
missed.
I mean, it was perfect. You got tons of awesome feedback. And I like how you also say these are evergreen. These never get old. The content like this, it's going to reach
So,
people probably after you're dead and gone, right? I mean,
yeah. Well,
hopefully it's going
that's
to
the
go
goal
on.
is that again, steal from was either Lexi or somebody else,
We
our
love Lexi.
history is his story, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
his story is eternal. I mean, we're still talking about testimonies of Abraham and Jacob,
Yeah. That's so good. I've never heard you say that before, but we sure are.
right? So again, we're not in the Bible, but his story is eternal, and what he does in us is just as important.
Yeah. It's a good
So,
word.
all right, you want to pray us
Well,
out?
yeah, let's pray. It's been such a great, great time today. Jesus, we come before you and just thank you, Lord. I thank you for Jason. I thank you for the call that you have upon his life, everything you've carried him through, all of his rough years and his rebellion and his anger. You never left his side. You continued to place people and circumstances into his path to help him realize his deep need for you. Lord, thank you that you pursue us when we're lost, when we're on the wrong path. And I just praise you for this holy call that you have for Jason to serve you, and that he has been obedient to that. Lord, I pray that the years coming up will be the best of Jason's life, and that you would just bless Jason and Lauren and their family, that you would let their farm flourish and their compound, their homestead, that it would do everything for your kingdom that you plan, that no power of the enemy would come against what they're trying to do on that piece of land that they have. I pray, Lord, that you would bring them people who can share in the labor, who can help them with everything that goes into all the work Jason is doing, that you would take some of that burden off by helping, just bringing other people to get involved and give them time as a couple, Lord. We pray, we thank you for their date coming up, and we pray that's just the beginning of much more time for them alone to focus on their marriage and their bond as a couple. Or we just thank you for the example they are to so many, to raise their children in Jesus Christ and what that looks like, and how Jason's story is able to teach people through his wrong turns what's out there in the world. I pray that we will become the disciplers of our family, and we wouldn't pass that off to other people. And I just pray that with Jason, a whole movement would spread out where we are taking back the church, where pastors rise up who are not afraid to preach the truth, who are not afraid to be disliked or hated or mocked. Lord, we thank you for his boldness and his courage, and pray you'd grow his church too. Just bring him people, help people find him who are looking, who had an experience like his where they're disillusioned, or they feel like people are fake, or church just wasn't doing it for them. I pray they would find PCM and they would find a home there, and that you just bless the work of his hands and bless his family, that they may be just abundantly blessed in all areas, and keep them safe and protect them from the enemy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for praying over me like you always do. I really appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.
God bless everyone, and I hope my story helps someone.
Right. It was awesome. Thank you, brother, for sharing it. We're all blessed for hearing it.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Bye.
God bless.
Listening to the Hope Report. If you were blessed by this episode, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels.